Hello everyone and welcome to the next installment of our training. My name is Alex Spencer and today we're going to be talking about HTML. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's pretty much the glue that brings any website together. And what I mean by that is no matter what website you go to, whether it's Google, Facebook, Yahoo, wherever it is, at its most basic level is HTML. I'm going to show you how I can prove that to you, and we're going to take a look at a couple of different sites so we can kind of start picking out some basic HTML tags, and then we're going to go ahead and type some of our own so we can get a very fundamental idea of HTML. This will not be an all-encompassing training by any measure, but I will give you some sites to go visit if you want to continue down this path. And I think it's a good path to go down. Web design and web creation has served me very well, so that's why I'm sharing this knowledge in the first place. Let's go ahead and just do a right click in our favorite web browser. You can see I'm using Chrome. I'm a big fan of Google Chrome, and if you want to learn how to install that, you want to go back and look at the previous videos where I walk you through setting up a new PC or Mac. But in Chrome, I'm just going to right click and I'm going to go to View Page Source. So this basically gives me the source code for Google.com. So this entire website is basic looking as is actually all of this stuff right here. Don't let it scare you, because a lot of this actually is not HTML. A lot of this is actually JavaScript. So I'm going to keep scrolling down until we can start finding some HTML tags here. And Google actually does a really good job of kind of scrunching all of their code together. They do this for a couple of reasons. One, they don't want people just copying their code. So by squishing it all together and making it hard to read, they actually make it a little bit harder for us to pick out and copy and replicate. But they also do this just because it loads faster. You know, the less white space that's in between your code makes it load a lot faster. So they do it for a couple of good reasons, and it's very understandable, but we're just going to take a look at it real quick and see some basic HTML tags. Now, anything that you see in purple in between these two, what I'm going to start calling sideways carets, which are these things right here and right here, that's HTML. So that's an HTML tag right here. That's actually the closing of an HTML tag. This is the starting of another HTML tag, and then we run right into another HTML tag. This is a very busy coded website, so I'm going to go ahead and leave this site. I'm going to hop over to alexspencer.net, and we're going to view the source there as well. I'm going to go ahead and right click once again. We're going to hit View Page Source, and you can tell this is how most websites these days typically look. And here's the basic startup of an HTML page. The first thing we do is declare the doc type, or what type of document it is that we're trying to load. Usually it's something like this, maybe a little bit simpler, maybe a little bit more. Then we open an HTML tag. We have some header tags. You can see anytime we open a tag, we usually either self-close it by putting a slash close caret, or we have a full slash, the name of the tag. So this is typically what you'll see in HTML, is you'll give the tag a name here, and then you'll close that tag by doing the same thing, but with a slash right after that opening caret on the close tag. So that's basically HTML at its most rudimentary form. There are a couple of rules to go along with HTML. Some of the basic things are first in, last out, which we'll talk about here soon. And then also just keep it nice, clean, and you'll hear me use the phrase semantic quite a bit. Try and keep your code as semantic or as normal as possible. What would other designers, what would other coders do if they were doing this? We all want to try and follow the same pattern, and that's simply because that way if somebody else comes along to work on your website, or you end up working in a team type atmosphere, you want to make sure everybody does it the same way. It makes it a lot easier to work together if everybody's on the same page. So you'll hear me use the word semantic quite a bit. But enough examples. Let's actually get into some basic HTML tags and building some basic HTML. To do this, we don't need a heck of a lot. All we really need is a text editor. So I'm using Sublime Text, and once again, if you don't have Sublime Text installed, do a Google for Sublime Text 2 and install it on your machine. If you don't know how to install programs on your machine, go back and look at some of the previous videos where I walk you through. Once again, that setting up a new PC or Mac video will walk you through installing programs on your computer. And again, a word of warning, we're not going to use Microsoft Word. You never want to use Microsoft Word, and I'll show you why. When you use Microsoft Word, you're not using a text editor. editor, or IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment, you're using what's called a word processor. Now, I know that is kind of some jargon and that might come across confusing, but word processors are meant to create documents. They're meant to create PDF files. They're meant to create, memos and letters from attorneys and business letters and things like that. They're not meant to be coded things. So if I actually come into this little Word document here and I start typing out HTML code, and I just do some basic HTML where I open it, let's just throw a head tag in here and then close it. And then I throw a body tag in here, and you guys will see me do this again in a much bigger fashion, but I want to show you how this is going to error out. And I'm just going to put some text in here. This will look bad. Okay, if I try and save this as an HTML file, now even though it says save as web page, it's still not recommended. So I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop. Make sure you try and save everything in the right place, that way you can find it. But I'm going to save it as, let's save it as index.html. And it's saved. This is going to save down to my desktop now. We see it come up here. And now when I double click on this, let me bring it over from my second monitor here. This is what comes up. This is not good HTML. This is not good programming. This is not good anything. This is what happens when computers get confused with what you're trying to do. This is a bad situation right here. So again, we do not want to use a Word or any type of word processor to do our coding. I'm going to go ahead and quit this. We want to use a text editor. Now, if you're on Windows, you have one built in that's not that great. Again, I'd recommend doing Sublime Text 2, but you do have Notepad. If you're on Mac, you do have TextEdit. And the reason why I'm not a fan of Notepad or TextEdit is just because they don't have a lot of the features that we're going to enjoy as we go along the way. So could I absolutely code up something like the HTML thing you saw right here in a text editor and then save it? Would it work? Absolutely. But again, it's not ideal. Ideally, we'd be using Sublime Text or another integrated development environment. NetBeans would be fine. Eclipse would be fine. Feel free to Google out either one of those if you really want to go a little bit more in depth with it. I'm going to just use Sublime Text because I find it very easy, very straightforward, and very simple to use. And we're going to start off by showing you some basic stuff. Let's start off by showing you what every first HTML document should have, and that's the doctype declaration. So I'm just going to put doctype. I'm going to put HTML, and that's about as complicated as it needs to be. Alex Spencer had a little bit more complicated, but that's really all you need. And then we're going to start with an opening HTML tag, and this is what I mean by first in, last out. The last thing on this page should then be the closing HTML tag. So we're going to keep this pattern where everything we build is first in, last out, and you'll kind of see that pattern start to emerge as we continue. The next thing that I'm going to do is create kind of a head section where I can put some what's called meta information, and that'll make more sense as we kind of go through it. And last but not least, I'm going to go ahead and throw in the body section, not boxy, but body. Okay, now I want one of the big benefits of Sublime to start showing through, and that's that I want some color coding here, so I can see pretty quickly and easily if I make a mistake, and also I just want to make sure that everything looks okay. So I'm going to do a file, save as, and I'm going to save this as an HTML file. Once again, I'm going to make sure to choose to save it to my desktop so we can get to it pretty quickly. I'll just call it index.html. It isn't a coincidence that I'm calling these files index, and we'll talk about that more a little bit on in later trainings. You'll notice once I save it, it appears on my desktop right here. There's the file. And then you'll notice the other thing that it does down here at the bottom right is it says, okay, this is an HTML file. I can start doing some color coding. So I can start giving you some of the benefits of Sublime is that it can color code based on what type of code you're typing. So if I wanted to build a CSS file, a Python file, a Ruby file, it's going to color code based on the general overall approved syntax or approved method of writing that particular scripting or programming language. So let's go ahead and talk about, we've got the basics down. This is pretty much how you would start the bare bones, bare minimum of any HTML document, any web page that you're creating. This is the bare bones. And you'll see if we go ahead and double click on this and load it up in the web browser, let me bring it over here. You'll see it's nothing but a blank file, but at least we don't have all the gibberish. And now let's go ahead and start with the most basic of HTML tags, and that's the paragraph tag, which is just a P enclosed in carets. So we're going to do P. This is my first paragraph. And we'll do another one. This is my second paragraph. And a third one just to make sure we got it. This is my third paragraph. Now, if you're typing along with me, feel free to pause the video as needed and copy down the code just to make sure you're caught up. Make sure it's looking good and color coded the same way. It doesn't have to be red necessarily, but make sure we've got opening and closing tags everywhere. This keeps it, again, called semantic, or looking good, neat, and clean. So let's go ahead and refresh this real quick, and we see we get this is my first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph. What if we want our text to be a little bit more bolder? What if we want to create some headings here to kind of break apart the first, second, and third and make it a little bit easier for people to tell what's going on? Well, let's actually add some headings here. Now, headings can span from H1s all the way through H6s, depending on the importance of the heading. So, to give you an idea, we'll do, this is the heading for the first paragraph. Very important stuff. And that's kind of a long heading, but we'll keep it. I'm just going to copy this line real quick. You'll see me do a lot of copying and pasting, so if you're not familiar with copy and pasting, you highlight the area you want to copy, you hit Edit, Copy, or you'll see me do this shortcut, which is Command C or Control C if you're on a PC, and then you'll see me paste, which is just basically Edit, Paste, or Command V or Control V if you're on a PC. So we're going to paste that, we're going to paste that, except this time I'm going to do an H2, which is a slightly less important. And we'll change this to an H3. Okay, let me save this and pull it up here. Okay, so there we see this is our H1, very important stuff. The text is the biggest. This gets the most weight from the search engines. We'll do an entire video on search engine optimization, but you need to know this from the beginning. H1s get the most weight from search engines, H2 get the next amount of weight, H3 and so on. And we can tell also that the level of importance decreases based on the size of the text. Later on we'll see how to completely blow up or shrink size of text, so that's not necessarily a huge deal, but we do need to get in the habit of saying, okay, we're going to create a heading, and then we're probably going to create a paragraph. We're going to create a heading and then probably a section of text. May not be a paragraph, a list, an image, something, but we're going to get in this habit where we create headings and then we actually put the context for the heading below it. But so far what we've learned is our H1 tags through H6, scale all the way down. We've learned paragraph tags. So already we're learning some very key constructs, stuff that to this day I still use day in and day out when doing HTML. Let's go ahead and move on and take a look at some other things real quick, a little bit more complicated, but not tragically. Let's go ahead and take a look at lists. There's two types of lists out there that we use in HTML. There's ordered lists, so that would be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it has an order. And there's unordered list, where it's just bullet point after bullet point after bullet point. So let's take a look at how we can create those in HTML. First one I'm going to do is an ordered list, so it's OL for ordered list. And every list item is going to be labeled with an LI. So I'm going to go ahead and close this OL once again, first in, last out, and everything in between it is going to be LI and then close LI. So this is kind of how I like to set up lists anyway, just so that way I can copy and paste and create some list items. So I'm just going to copy this real quick with a Command C, Control C again if you're in Windows, and then Command V, Control V to do the pasting. Let's do list item 1, list item 2, and we'll say apples, oranges, bananas. Okay, let's go and save that. I'm doing a Command S to do the quick save, by the way. You'll notice that I use a lot of these shortcuts. Anytime you want to learn what a shortcut is, notice it's over here on the right. Command Z undoes. There's the copy, paste. Command S is the save. It just saves a lot of time if you get used to these keyboard shortcuts. But now that let's save, let's go ahead and load that up. And we see our list comes up. And notice we didn't have to type this 1.2.3.4.5. That's automatically included whenever we declare an ordered list. We get list item 1, list item 2, apples, oranges, bananas. Everything's broken to its own line automatically. Pretty straightforward and pretty easy to do. Now, one thing to keep in mind is typically white space doesn't matter in here, so even though I formatted it like this myself, I could put all these list items together and it would not matter. It would still be parsed by the browser or interpreted by the browser the same way. Nobody ever puts their code like this, so you'll rarely see me do it. I don't want to give you guys any bad habits, but I do want to point out the fact that usually white spacing or enters don't matter a lot of times. It's only the stuff that's inside these tags matter, but where you put the tags or how far away you put the tags will not matter. So let me close that. Looks like I did a break here. But if I put, 1,000 spaces in between list item 1 and list item 2 and save it, does not matter. The only time it matters is when I'm inside the tag. So if I did this, that would make a difference because I'm inside the list item. Notice we've got an opening and the closing doesn't happen until I get all the way over here to this. It opens over here. So this will make a difference because I'm inside the tag. Well, maybe not. I could have sworn it would. In HTML it doesn't. Most of the time when you're printing stuff out it does. But again, just to be safe, format your stuff correctly. The only time you'll see me use weird spacing, I'll specifically note why I'm doing that. So don't worry about that too much. Let's go ahead and get these back to normal. Oh, and I remembered with HTML you actually have to declare a non-breaking space. So if I really wanted to put a bunch of spaces in here, I would do an NBSB or something like that. And we'll actually show that in a little bit more advanced HTML, but I don't want to confuse anyone right now. Let's go ahead and switch this ordered list to an unordered list with just some bullet points. So to do that, I'm just going to switch these tags right here that declare it an ordered list to an unordered list, or UL. We'll change both of these because we want to make sure they match. And now our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 become bullet points. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way down, but they're just bullet points. So that's the difference between unordered lists and lists. Go ahead and take a second to practice these. Type these out a bunch of times. Give yourself time. If you're new to HTML, type this up a couple of times over. Type it up, then completely delete the file. Type it up again, completely delete the file. Make sure you do this a couple of times until you're pretty sure you've got it down pat. And you want to do this anytime throughout the training. You want to kind of take these small chunks of information, digest them, and then move on. It'll help kind of commit it to your memory. Let's look at one last thing here before we get too far into the rabbit hole, and that's linking. Let's say I want to create a link to Google, or I want to create a link to alexspencer.net. I do that with what's called anchor tags. So anchor tags are a little bit more complicated because they require attributes. So far you've just seen me create tags and close tags. Anchor tags are going to require what's called attributes. An attribute is nothing more than, hey, I need more information than just this. If I create an anchor tag, which is just an A, and then I put good on you, Google, and then close it, it doesn't know where to send it to. It doesn't know, this tag doesn't know, do I send you to Google? Do I send you to alexspencer.net? Do I send you to a search for good on you? It doesn't know where to send me to. So if I create this, it doesn't even create the link. Notice I can click on this all I want. It's just anchored there. It's kind of worthless. So I need to actually add an attribute here. I'm going to get rid of all this good on you stuff and just put go to Google. And now I'm going to give it the attribute, which is href equals, and then in between these two parentheses, that's how you add an href attribute or a linking attribute. Where do I want to send people to? Well, I want to send them to the full Google address. So I can't just do www. I have to do http://www.google.com, the full URL or address to Google. So I'm going to go ahead and save that now. and refresh. And now if I see go to Google, I click on it, it's going to take me to google.com. I can go back, I'm right back on my web page. What if I don't want people to leave my site to get to Google though? Well, again, I can use what's called an attribute to say, hey, I want this to pop up in a new blank page. The way I do this is by saying target, what do I want to send the target to, underscore blank. Now, where did I get this code from? I honestly have memorized it just from typing it so many times. But again, at the end of this lesson real quick, I'll show you some places where you can look that up. And most importantly, I'm taking you there already through this training. That's Google. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and now you'll see the difference real quick. I'm going to go ahead and refresh. Now when I click go to Google, notice it opens a secondary tab in Google Chrome. My website's still in this tab, but the secondary tab is opened up. This is called tabbed browsing. This is something I do all the time, and you'll see me do quite a bit through the trainings and tutorials. If I personally wanted to create a third tab or tertiary tab, I'd hold down Command T. It would open a third tab, and I could even go to www.facebook.com, alexspencer.net, YouTube, wherever it is I wanted to go, and I could have all these tabs open at once. Kind of like having multiple internet browsers, but all in the same group, so they're really easy to switch between. And that's how you can create a new tab for your user if you don't want them to leave your website. You just want them to be able to close down this tab and boom, they're back at your website. So that's your introduction to HTML 101. Again, take a couple of times through this, typing this up over and over again. Be sure when you save it as a .html document. If I had saved this just as a regular text document, it wouldn't load up in the browser. It would just load in my text editor. So be sure you are saving this as index.html. If I save this as index.txt, it's just going to bring up my text editor and show me the code for it. It's not going to work. So again, that needs to be index.html, and I'll go ahead and change that back for us real quick. And now that we've learned some basics of HTML, let's learn how we can find out more or dive a little bit deeper, because I can't show everything. We would literally be here for hours and hours and hours. We have to learn how to survive on our own. We have to learn how to find answers on our own. And the number one place to do that at, believe it or not, you've already seen throughout this training, is Google. Let me give you a quick example. We talked about tags and tags having attributes. Let's say I want to look up all the attributes for a tags, or attributes for HTML tags. You notice we already have them here. I'm going to add a anchor is what they're actually called. Let's do attributes for anchor tags. Well, we see this W3 Schools link come up. Not a hugely popular site because it does have some inaccuracies from time to time, but I personally am not that offended by it. And it gives some good examples and some good in-browser tutorials. So I think it's a good idea to go ahead and click here and play around. This is one of the sites that I would recommend, is W3 Schools. And you can go through and see, okay, this is an anchor tag. It's supported by all of these browsers, which is good. It creates a link to another document, or it creates a bookmark inside the document, which we'll talk about as well. Here's all of its optional attributes. So href is a URL, and it says it specifies the URL the page should go to. That's the one that we learned about. We also learned about target, specify whether to open the linked document. So we can do blank, parent, or self, which is the same document, top level document, or frame name. So you can even have it opened up in a frame. And there's a bunch of other attributes. Every single one of these tags you see over here on the left hand side is an HTML tag, and all of the documentation is right here. So we saw H1 through H6. We can see its optional attributes only is a line. When it's even deprecated, we use CSS for that, so we probably won't use any attributes on H1 through H6. We also used LIs, which were list items. They're always put inside of ordered lists or unordered lists, and we can hit the test it yourself button to kind of come around and play in here. So if I wanted to even come in this web browser /coder and add something, milk tea, let's add soda over on the left hand side, and then click it, notice that it added soda over here. So I'm a fan of W3 Schools. I know it's not hugely popular because some people claim it has some slightly outdated information or some inaccuracies, but as a quick, easy reference, it gets the job done, and it's not bad at all. So these are all of your HTML tags. Feel free to look around and do some exploring on your own. We will definitely dive into a lot more tags, specifically the form tags, the image tags, the table tags, but for right now I wanted to show you, number one, you can always Google out any questions you have. Number two, W3 Schools is not a bad place to go. Also on my website, if you're really into video learning and you're enjoying this on my website, feel free to go to alexspencer.net, and over on the right hand side of these video tutorials you'll see a link to a place called Treehouse. They are an amazing training center with live videos, a lot more than I can teach in 1 week, 1 month, or even 6 months. Live quizzes, they're doing advanced tutorials all the way up to designing apps for iPhones and all the way down to basic HTML stuff like that. And you get 50% your first month if you click on this link from alexspencer.net. So definitely check them out as well if you're really enjoying this training and you want a slightly more advanced track. Those are the two places I'd recommend. And then also, if you have any questions, once again, feel free to email me or leave it in the comments just by clicking right here where it says 0 comments and adding a comment to any of these videos. Thanks again for watching, everybody. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.